going to move on now to vermicelli with thread. Vermicelli is nothing more than a series of squiggly lines that you can use or follow to create an area of stitching in a large area without it being densely packed. The trick with vermicelli to make it effective is using very small stitches. In this case, I am using a variegated metallic thread, and I'm simply using a small chain stitch following a very irregular squiggly pattern, and you can barely see that I have a very light tracing of it on the fabric. In many cases, I may follow that. It's kind of as a guideline, and it's just a matter of stitching these squiggly lines and keeping them fluid and not regular. So I tend to try to give myself some lines to follow. It's a little bit easier. If I have a large area to fill, then I will do it all out on paper to make sure that the density and the scale remain consistent throughout. Sometimes if I'm just doing it around this could be the part of a neckline of a garment or around a collar or something like that, then I might just do it by eye as I'm stitching. But the real test of vermicelli is the small, short stitches to fill the area. You can see how it's just filling with a serpentine look of stitches. Takes a little practice because you're changing angles with every stitch, but it does come out to be a really nice effect. The second technique here is going to be the applique stitch, which is also called a point riche. It's actually two stitches in one. We're going to apply this yellow fabric to the back side of our organza. And it's going to be actually on the front, but we're stitching this from the back. So in this case, we start by just securing the fabric we're going to applique onto the underside of our frame with pins. And I use a lot of pins to hold it tight and square to the fabric so that it's really nice and tightly attached to it. Then around the contour of this little flower petal, we're going to stitch a very, very, very small, tight stitch. It's just a basic stitch, but it's very, very small. It's hard to say how, what it is in millimeters. It's a very, very tiny stitch. What I'm doing underneath is holding my fingers like this underneath where I'm going to be putting the thread through, the needle through. So because I'm going through two layers of fabric, and I don't want the needle to push the lower fabric away from the base of the stretched fabric. So my fingers help to hold that in place. It's a little slow going because you're going through two layers of fabric, and because you're going through two layers of fabric, you have to add a little bit more pressure to the back, to the pushing of the hook, right, as you come back out. Now, once you've got that finished, we have to now put another layer of stitching on here, and I'm going to use a slightly different color thread so you can see the difference. Starting basically, normally I would use the same color, and that's why I'm starting where I ended, because I would just turn around and go back and do this. And what it is, it's a series of tiny stitches zigzagging back and forth across where you just stitched. This, again, these are very, very tiny. They're very close together, and they are basically sealing the area where the two fabrics are going to come together. It's a little bit slow going. You just have to take your time. Again, push a little bit harder on the upstroke against the back of the hook to go through all the layers. So I've gone all the way around, and the end here was getting a little big. It shouldn't have been that big. And then you just finish it off like normal. Now, once you've done this, you can then take the pins out, turn your fabric over, or your frame over rather, and trim away the excess fabric on the outside of the design. You can see that's what's on the front. It's just that fine line of stitching. Very carefully you trim the fabric right up against the stitching line. Notice how my scissors are laying flat to the stretched fabric. I always do that so that I don't mistakenly catch the tips of my scissors in the organza that's stretched. And I also will pull on the fabric that I'm cutting away so that it sort of lifts from the surface of the stretched fabric. That helps to keep a clean edge, and it helps to keep the scissors from catching the underside. I can go around and just trim little bits here and there. It takes really sharp scissors to do this. And then you would put a line of either beads or sequins around the outside edge of this motif, and you would have on a white piece of organza a yellow applique fabric, or any fabric. You can use chiffon, you can use all kinds of things.